Go. And we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Tiffany Roman coming to you live from Facebook and YouTube with another episode of a Small Biz Highlight. This is episode number 25. If you are joining us live, thank you for stopping by and checking us out. Please leave a like, a hug, a heart, whatever little emoji you'd like to leave us. We appreciate it. If you are watching us on replay, hashtag replay. In the comments, let us know you stopped by. A couple announcements before we get started. One is last week we originally had an event at the vineyards at Hershey scheduled, but because of the rain forecast, we pushed it back to the 18th. So now the Vineyard at Hershey vendor event is going to be the 18th, this coming Sunday from 12 to 3. I will still be there. I will be going live, interviewing the vendors that are there physically, so that if you are unable to attend or are not comfortable with attending local events in person yet, you can certainly find the links and information you need to shop with the vendors online. So feel free to keep up to date with my webpage. Please like and share Small Biz Highlights so that anybody and everybody who'd be interested in the event can catch all the live videos and get all the information they need. Also, I am almost to my goal of 1,000 followers, which I am so excited. I am about 920 now, at 915, I think. So we are getting there. We are getting there, and I am so excited. Thank you to all who have been liking and sharing and whatnot. I really appreciate it. Please continue to do so. The goal is to reach 1,000 by my birthday, October 28th. So what are we at now? 12. 16 days left. Don't tell my stepdad, who's an accountant, that it took me that long in my head to decide how many days were left. He would be very, very disappointed in me. But anyway, besides all of that, I am here with Mr. Patrick Bratton. He is an instructor and owner of Sala della Spada. I hope I said that right. Yes. And I am so excited to learn more about this, just because it's something totally different than I've done an interview for before. So this is going to be really exciting. But first, I always start my interviews with a very simple question. I always just want to know, who are you? Where are you from? Family, interests, what have you? Anything that you'd like the world to know about you.
Okay. Hi, you said the name correct, Sala della Spada. So Patrick Bratton. I've lived a lot of places. I've been here in South Central PA for about 4 years now with my family. I have a wife and I have an 11-year-old son. We live in Carlisle. Really enjoy it here. We've lived a bunch of other places. I was born in Hawaii and I grew up mostly in Alaska, of all places. So I've been sort of all around, and we really enjoyed living here in Central PA so far. And particularly like the falls, like what we have right now with the fall colors and things, really enjoying it. So I like the outdoors, like doing stuff with my family. I guess that's sort of a short version of me, beyond other stuff. So.
Okay, so wow, Hawaii. I actually kind of figured that out on my own because I saw that your phone number on your webpage on Facebook had an 808 number. So I actually figured that out. I was waiting to see if you would mention Hawaii. I had the opportunity to go there for the Army.
Nice.
2 summers ago. I had to go for training. So that I got to go to Pearl Harbor and all of that. That was an amazing time.
Oh, wow. Did you get a Schofield Barracks, or where were we at?
Which base did you say?
Schofield Barracks. That's the main Army.
No, I was not at Schofield Barracks. I was at another one, and if it comes to me in the middle of the show, I will let you know. For some reason, the name just always escapes me until I don't need it anymore, and then I remember. But no, I'm familiar with Schofield Barracks. We did get to stop by there and see what it was like there. But no, I did not stay there. It will come to me, though. It will. I promise. All right. So, okay, Sala della Spada. It's got to mean something first. So what does that translate to?
Oh, yes. So the traditional sort of naming sort of tradition for fencing schools In Italian, you say sala, which means hall or house, and in French you say salle. So in the U.S., you'll often see a fencing school salle something. And normally, it's the last name of the person running the school. So you would have like Sal Santelli or something like that. So hall, and then spada is just Italian for sword, and you can see the same kind of the same sort of root that you have in Spanish, and also as well in French for épée and things like that. So just sort of the house of the sword or the hall of the sword. I was trying to think of something that was kind of catchy, but not necessarily always geographically located. I didn't want to sort of do like Sala de Carlisle or something. Didn't quite roll off the tongue as much as I love Carlisle.
I absolutely agree. This name sounds so much better. Now, like I said, this is something that's totally different than my usual interviews. You are I think it's really cool. You are a fencing school. I didn't know they existed until I happened to drive by one time. It wasn't yours. Like, I knew people had to learn it somewhere because it's in the Olympics. It's out there for like the movie people to learn how to fight and whatnot. So somebody's got to be out there teaching. But you are my first ever person that actually know involved with the school. How long have you been with the school?
I've had the school here for about a year and a half now. Before that, I had taught at a couple of different clubs, kind of, as kind of just as a kind of guest instructor or temporary instructor at a couple of places in the area. And so I've had it about a year and a half now, and things were going really good until sort of COVID happened, right? But we've kept it going, actually. So I have a dedicated small group of fencers, depending on the time, about 6 to 10. And the thing that's really impressed me is that people's willingness to be flexible and adaptable. So when COVID happened, normally we're 2 nights a week here in Carlisle. We're hosted normally in the Kung Fu Center. That's right downtown. That's sort of our sister school. So a lot of members go back and forth doing martial arts and fencing and stuff. And so, but we've been flexible. We've had Zoom classes. We've been meeting out in the park, that's in the outdoors and stuff. So there are fencing classes around. We're not as common as, say, like some of the martial arts places in town and stuff, but you do find them, and you'll find a lot of times people they're based on like the local YMCA, the Parks and Rec. That's a pretty common one. In bigger cities, you tend to have the more larger standalone kind of stuff. So, but yeah, you do find them. But yeah, it's not often. And I still do get people like fencing. Like, you guys do barbed wire, electric, or stuff, right? Wrong kind of fencing, or other kinds of fencing. Well, I got some goods, I got to move them or something. Other types of fencing, people tend to get, kind of mixed in with it. But.
Oh no, I can only imagine. That's got to be like a really bad punchline of a joke or something. Right. Somewhere. So, okay, so how long have you been fencing?
That's a funny question. So I started doing like sort of fencing and martial arts when I was younger in high school. And so high school, college, that was sort of my big thing. And then like a lot of us, right? Like life happens and you kind of stop. So when I went to grad school and got married, all this kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff kind of dropped out, for about 10 or so years. And then about, I don't know, probably about 8 years ago, as I started to get older, I thought, I got to think of what I like doing, right? Because I'm not the kind of person who just wants to like hang out in a gym or something just because. And so I started thinking, well, what did I like doing? And I thought, well, martial arts fencing. And so I got back into doing that. Probably 2013 or so, and got back into it, really liked it. And also found a program that I go to every year that does kind of pedagogy, teaching you how to teach fencing. And I'm a sort of a teacher in my day job. And so doing the teaching part of the fencing also really appeals to me, because I like doing things, but I also like teaching people and watching people grow doing the activity. So probably about 7 or 8 years now, I've been back doing it and just really loving it. Really, really gives me a nice way of setting goals to be active, and then goals also for pedagogical learning, both for myself and for students. So it's kind of like a Venn diagram of happiness, if you will, with sort of mental, physical activity and pedagogical activity. So I really enjoy it. So.
Okay, so like I said, I am not well versed in the world of fencing. So when I think of fencing, I automatically think of like duels and the old fashioned movies where they used to break out in a sword fight and pirates hit fighting each other with swords and stuff. Is that the kind of like, I know it's more like structured, right, than what I'm portraying in the movies.
I think it's a really good question. The world of fencing is actually, I mean, like everything, right? So you got different types of martial arts, you got different types of fencing. And so the dominant form of fencing that probably most people think of is sort of what we would term Olympic fencing, which is what you see, well, in the Olympics, right? Everybody's in white and they've got the electric gear and happens really fast, right? So that's the sort of where fencing has sort of evolved from its origins. And we can talk about the history in a little bit. And that's sort of the normal way of Olympic fencing. And I've done some of that. I actually focus on something that's sort of a niche version of fencing, which is called historical fencing. And so there's kind of a movement back in the 80s and the 90s where people were wanting to do sword fighting, but actually, just as you said, they were like, well, what are those pirate movies or those Errol Flynn movies or Princess Bride or whatever thing people liked watching them when they were a kid, right? Why is it that, say, fencing in the Olympics doesn't really look like that? And so people started to try and, in some cases, recreate or, in a sense, go back to sort of older training techniques to have fencing that actually had a weapon that looks like an actual sword rather than a wire or something. And so I'm sort of part of that movement. And so we train with older weapons. So we train with sort of big military sabers. We train with rapiers. We also do some other weapons. And one of my favorites is one of the ones that's very popular with the students. We use this training for a great sword. It's called, in Spanish, it's called a montante. In Italian, it's called a spadone. And it's a big sword. It's like, if I'm standing up, it's about the size up to my eye. It's this huge, big sword. You see them in museums, like you can see them at the Philly Museum of Art. And so it's just kind of a big, fun sword you swing around. So we've tried to both recreate and then also keep traditional sort of fencing techniques. So it has an analogy with the Olympic fencing. Some of the movements and the training is the same. But we try to have it where you're doing something that's a little bit more like a martial art than a sport. So keeping in mind, a heavier weapon techniques that would, if you were in a duel or something like that, would be more appropriate. I mean, we don't do anything violent like that. We don't have sharp weapons and stuff. But the idea is to keep it more, and again, you can see this division in a lot of martial arts, where some martial arts are very tournament-based, others are very self-defense based, others maybe practicing for MMA or something like that. So this is a kind of a more sort of martial or traditional sort of martial art version of fencing. And so it's also very appealing because I find a lot of Olympic fencing, Olympic fencers train really hard, they're very athletic. And so, if you've got older folks or people who are not as sort of, athletically minded, it's a bit slower. And so people can kind of get into it, and, there's not a lot of pressure that if you're not 16, you're not competitive or something like that. I always joke, it's a bit like my motto for teaching fencing is a bit like that movie Ratatouille, like anybody can cook, right? So I think anybody can fence, right? You don't have to be 16 and in great shape. I've got students that range from their teens all the way up. I've got a guy in his mid-70s. So, anybody can, we can work with you and have fun, and you can kind of, sort of live out your sort of childhood dreams of whatever it is, swashbuckling Princess Bride, and have a good time. And so that's sort of the way I sort of pitch it, if you will. So again, just to have fun. Who doesn't? I mean, we all picked up swords and sticks as kids, right? To go, with their brothers and sisters and friends and stuff like that. So it's a way of kind of doing that, which is also fun.
Watching Olympic fencing always confuses me because I understand sort of the concept. Somebody has to stab another person with the poke, not stab. I apologize, poke. But like, it happens so fast. It's like, how do they even do it that fast? Like, how I would have gotten poked like maybe 20 times before I even recognized when the person was swinging the thing at me. Like, it's so thin, the ones that they use. That's why I think it's cool that you're using like old-fashioned weapons. That I feel like I was becoming better.
Right. A criticism, and again, a criticism or complaint people make is that modern Olympic fencing it's not an ideal spectator sport because it happens so fast. And both lights went off. Who did what? It's really hard to follow. It actually can be hard to follow for even people who fence, like to watch high-level fencing. It's actually to be a referee, for example, in Olympic fencing. It's a lot of training workshops people go to. You're watching a lot of video footage and stuff. It's very, very high-level stuff to be able to watch it, and so it just happens way too fast. And so for most people to watch, so our fencing tends to be something. The blades are bigger, heavier. You can mostly follow what's going on. You don't need sort of an interpreter to tell you, okay, well, fencer A and fencer B, hey, I saw that this guy blocked and hit the other guy, so okay, B got the point or B got the hit or whatever you want to say. So it tends to be a lot easier to follow, if you will. The thing is, it's a much smaller community than the Olympic fencing community, and in part because Olympic fencing is really attractive for kids and for youth. And so that's a huge sort of market for Olympic fencing. Where it tends to be historical fencing tends to be something for college age and above. There hasn't been the push, unfortunately, so far, for youth fencing and stuff. But that's one of those other things that we can start to work on. I've got a couple of younger fencers who are in their teens, and they seem to have a good time with it. So we just gotta keep training again, kind of grow the community, right? So
I saw in your picture that you still use the helmet and the gloves and everything that they use in the Olympics too. Yeah. That's all for safety, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I try to keep safety really in mind with, I always kind of tell people safety first, like we can't have fun unless we're safe. And so that's sort of the attitude that I like to have in the school. We start out, our sort of basic kit is very similar to Olympic fencing. So the mask, the glove, the jacket. And the jacket is really there for puncture resistance. It's not, our weapons are not sharp, but there's always the odd chance that a weapon breaks and then it has a sharp edge because it broke. And that's actually more where the resistance comes in. Having said that, our weapons tend to be heavier, so we'll need some additional sort of arm and leg protection. You've probably seen some of the photos and stuff, particularly on things like elbows and hands and, that kind of stuff. No, it's not huge. It's not like wearing like a medieval suit of plate armor or something like that, but a little extra protection for some of the things. And particularly if you go to tournaments, tournaments will want to have a lot more protective gear than even what we necessarily might use in the practice at the club. So yeah, definitely the protective gear. And it's a thing that's also sometimes can be a barrier for folks for getting the gear and stuff like that. One thing I kind of pitch it at is I have a lot of like club gear myself, so I always tell people try it out. You don't have to buy anything. See if you like it. Play around with the other stuff that the people have, and then later you can buy something. So I think sometimes people feel like with any hobby, like wow, that's got a lot of stuff. I don't think I can buy it. I try to make it so that people can come in, give it a try, try out what this person has in the club, what that person has in the club, then you can make an informed decision later. Another thing I'd also say, like any hobby where there's lots of like kids participating, if you don't mind used stuff like Amazon, Goodwill, that's not Amazon, eBay, Goodwill, all these places, you can find used equipment pretty easy. Again, like any club or anything or any activity, kids get in it and they get out of it, right? And then parents are left kind of selling the gear, right? So that could be also, the kind of stuff, just like the same way you might go to a Play It Again sports, like to pick up lacrosse gear or soccer gear or whatever, football gear for your kid, right? Same kind of thing. You can find good deals on used equipment as well, so.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I know you mentioned earlier that, COVID affected everybody one way or another. And I'm sure this affected you crazily because, you are all about, you got to be able to fight somebody else to practice in theory, I guess. But you said you were still able to continue. What were some of the ways you were able to continue?
Big one was taking practice outside. Again, I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, but seems to be activities outside, just like we do dining outside and stuff, seems to be safer. So we were very thankful that the Carlisle Borough opened up a lot of the parks for a lot of activities, yoga, kung fu, lots of people went outside. And so we've been able to do that all throughout the summer, and that's been great. So being able to go outside in the parks, other things too as well. We have kind of advantage. We have sort of weapons, so we're not like that close to each other, right? So you were doing like an empty hand martial art where you've got to get up close to do blocking and punching. Mm-hmm. So a little bit trickier, but ours, we always have each person has a weapon that's about 3 feet long. And so we do keep a distance. I have changed the training techniques in a sense. There's more stuff that we do that I think would be safer than other stuff. So I'm not doing as much, say, like cardio. Like I'm not having a lot of people like heavy breathing next to each other for long periods of time. So stuff like that. And people have been really, the thing that I think, again, this will sound like a bit of a cliche or something. The thing I've been really impressed with is, when you have times like these, people are willing to sort of work with each other. And so you might not, you have an understanding, hey, we can at least be here and doing these things. Maybe we can't do everything that we want to do, but we can do these things over here safely. We can do different things. And so that's been really, I think, positive, both whether it's support from the community or it's support from all of the members. People were willing to do stuff. And in fact, that's actually one reason I kind of pushed forward to doing I mentioned the big sword that we do. It was an easy way to be outside and keep space between each other, right? To swing a big sword around. And so again, just ways of doing what we want to do, modified for, conditions and safety and things.
I'm a big history geek, so the fact that you use old-fashioned weapons just intrigues me because you always see them fighting around with them in like movies and stuff, or when they do like the reenactments and whatnot. But usually, it's not. I don't know. I'm sure it's totally different than the way you would teach somebody to flop it around or whatever. And it's fake. It's not going to do anything. But
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's tricky. It's kind of a running joke in the fencing community to like make fun of sword fights on movies and TV because it's different. But I actually gotta take a different view because it is different, and that doesn't mean that it's bad. So there's a tension, right? Because like in fencing, like your goal is one, not to get hit, and the secondary goal is to hit the other person. So you often hit the other person by doing something that's a surprise or subtle, right? Rather than necessarily something that's obvious. But you have the opposite sort of push when you're doing fight choreography for a movie or TV, because you got to make sure the audience can see it, right? And so you have to, in a movie, you have to do these big, cool looking stuff, right? Then in an actual fight, like the other guy be like, oh, he's like waving the sword around. I'm just going to stab him in the face or something while he does this crazy stuff in the background, right? So, there's kind of opposite goals that they're looking for. And so I kind of look at it as if you've got good fight choreography, the thing is it has to kind of work with the story. So like here's the good guy, here's the bad guy, what's going on, who's stronger, or something like that, whether it's Star Wars or any of these things. And I think as long as it tells a good story and it tells you and it shows you something like how that weapon would be used, I think it's good. Now, there can be bad fight choreography. A lot of bad movies that are out there, but you can have some good fight directors who really know what they're doing with the stuff. And again, for me, they kind of selfishly, if people watch stuff like that and they get interested, then they want to sword fight, right? Unless you got sword fights in movies that people see that are cool, like why would you want to do this? Like we don't necessarily need to do this activity like every day, right? Thankfully, like I'm not leaving my house and fighting with people in the street or something, right? So it's not like driving a car or other things that are kind of that you have to do today. But yeah, it's true. Like with movies and the reality, there'll be a difference. But again, it can still be exciting. Everybody's probably got their favorite movie sword fight that they like to see. It's just that it always looks much bigger than what you would actually like to do.
Because of cameras and all that crazy stuff that movies do to it. Absolutely. But oh my goodness. It sounds like so much fun. So if somebody reaches out to you and is interested in classes, how does it typically work? Are you do you give them like a week or so to try out classes and then it's so much a month or whatever to sign up?
Yeah, so I normally give people, they can take a couple classes. We normally do about 2 a week. So people can come in for 1 or 2 classes, try it out. And then we've got a monthly fee. Normally, right now it's kind of in flux, but it kind of depends on what people want to do. If they want 2 nights a week or 1 night a week, it's more or less money. And I also do individual lessons for people who want to do that as well. I've had people who can't make the class time and things like that. I tend to try to be pretty flexible. So, what people want to do and then get them sort of into doing the activity. And everybody's got to start from, if they don't have a background, kind of start at the basics. And I've got students at sort of every level. So normally able to pair people with somebody who can also do a bit of mentoring with them in the class and kind of get them up to speed. The other thing too with us is that again, there's different approaches. I tend not to rush people. I tend to really, let's focus on fundamentals and doing things in a safe, fun manner, rather than say like, all right, you've had like 2 lessons, like, go fight this huge guy over there. I tend to have something where I really want to have people to come in and have a good time, be safe. And so, we'll be pretty flexible to work around what people are capable and want to do, as sort of again, that's the kind of thing anybody can fence, is sort of my sort of motto. So.
And how much does it usually cost to sign up for classes?
Right as we shift back, we've been a little in flux with COVID. As we get back indoors next month, we'll be back on our traditional sort of structure of fees. So it's about $65 a month if you're doing 2 nights a week. It's $45 a month if you're doing 1 night a week, and it's pretty flexible. So if somebody can come on like the Tuesday this week and the Friday the next week, that's I'll work with people on doing that. We tend not to. Not to be too, you signed up only for Tuesdays or something like that. Some places might have your Tuesday person. We can show up either day of the week. The other thing too is a lot of other places, there's various associations that cover sort of fencing and things. One, kind of selling point I give is that my sort of rate is all inclusive. A lot of other places you might sign up and then have to join a national federation or an additional sort of umbrella group, mostly for insurance purposes, why that happens. So again, mine is like, you paid the fee, you're good. You don't have to join something else or do these other paperwork or something like that.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, if you are just catching us here live, we are live on Facebook and YouTube with episode 25 of Small Biz Highlight with Mr. Patrick Bratton of Sala della Spada. They are a fencing school in Carlisle, PA. I don't know about you, but learning how to fight with old school weapons just sounds like a lot of fun to me. A lot of exercise out for the arms, because they've got to be a little bit heavy because they're old school weapons. But I just think that's so cool. Maybe because that's just the history geek in me, but whatever, I'm gonna live with it. I'm gonna live with that. It's cool. So if you want more information on how to get involved with try out the classes for 2 weeks, like he mentioned, I have the information on how to reach them scrolling on the bottom of the screen, but I also put them in the comments so that you guys can find them in the comments. If for some reason you click on something and it does not take you where it needs to, let me know. I can send you the link and whatnot, and get you in touch with him to make sure that you get the information that you need, or any questions that you have, you can get them answered. Thank you so much, Patrick, for taking the time to be on my show. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It was real pleasure.
All right, so like I've been trying to do the last couple of times I've been on, I always like to just remind everybody, please try to learn to put your communities first. Shop small, eat local, and support small businesses, please. If you have any other questions, or if you have a favorite vendor or a local place that you think would love to be featured on my show, please send them my way or give them my information. I would love to have them on my show, help them get the word out that they exist, that they're open and they're ready for customers, because the more help I can get to small businesses, the better. Thank you again to everybody who stopped by. If you're watching us on replay, #replay in the comments so we know you stopped by. Thanks again. Have a good day, everybody.